Let the record reflect that all members are present except for Councilmember Hampton. Oh, and Councilmember Stipp, too. Oops.
I would like to remind council that staff will be pausing intermediately to answer any questions. We will now receive the Goodyear Municipal Court Executive Summary. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. It is definitely a pleasure to be before you again today, in smaller numbers though, but it's very pleasant to be here. Esteemed Mayor Pizzillo and members of council, it's my pleasure as the presiding judge for the Goodyear Municipal Court to present the State of the Court address for fiscal year 2022. I'd like to call your attention to our first slide, actually. It's going to be that bar graph that we have. Thank you so much. It's a nice, colorful little table that we have here, and it really shows the changes that we've experienced from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022 regarding our charge filings. We can appreciate a rapid increase, as we can see, in domestic violence cases, protective order cases, criminal traffic cases, and in reality, in all of them but for our civil traffic cases from 2021 to 2022. Our clearance rate has actually increased from fiscal year 21, which was at a 97%, where we closed out 10,690 charges, to fiscal year 2022 to 98% closure rate, which is terminated charges in the amount of 12,361. We have fallen below 100% for our case clearance rate, and due to, of course, the increase in workload that we've experienced, the demands on the court, experiencing staff absences and continuances and delays as a result of evidence. Specifically, we're experiencing delays in the portion of disclosure for body cam video from officers. It takes anywhere between 5 to 10 weeks, which prolongs the amount of time that we have a case active open before we can actually disposition that one. I'd also like to focus our attention now on our next slide. And give me one bit, my computer's giving me an issue. Touch, not touch. Regarding our access to services for the court. We are, of course, we were very involved with online dispute resolution. We began implementing this pilot program in January of 2021. And we maintained the highest caseload of the entire state. In fact, we had about 600 plus misdemeanor traffic cases that were referred through the pilot program, many reaching resolution after plea negotiations with the prosecutor's office. The Supreme Court of Arizona was fully funding this program. It was at 100% using their Matterhorn platform, which was wonderful because it was no expense to the city of Goodyear or all other courts that were piloting it. However, they have since decided to discontinue funding, and their contract for service has been end dated. So as a result, we suspended the use of ODR. It was about April 21st of 2022 due to inadequate court and prosecutorial resources to maintain this very busy program. But we also reached out to the platform vendor ourselves independently from the Supreme Court just to consider what the cost-benefit analysis would be of continuing with this service independently from that being provided by the Supreme Court. However, the vendor was non-responsive in spite of multiple contacts by my court administrator here. We were unable to receive a positive response and follow-up conversations in meetings we had with the prosecutor's office. After much discussion, we both agreed that it would not be in the best interest of either the city prosecutor's office or the court to continue with the process because it's very labor intensive. And Ms. Whalen can speak to this further when I'm done. She was the one spearheading this project, and it pretty much it requires complete and full dedication from at least 3 people, which we don't have the resources for to be able to man. It's very convenient for the person in their jammies doing everything at home, but it does tend to be very absorbing for the court staff that's handling the project. We are also very successful in our DocuSign program. We have full implementation of DocuSign. We have over 160 cases that have been processed through electronic signature and remote sentencing. We continue participating in our Glendale Municipal Court annual Stand Up for Veterans, as well as the Tempe Municipal Court Stand Down for Veterans event. And we also are partnering with the Maricopa County Regional Homeless Court, granting approval for eligible defendants to take and complete community service in lieu of their fines. And of course, we're very proud of our zealous advocacy and our participation in a program that you all approved, which is our problem-solving community court. We have and are fully engaged now with Arizona Court Consulting LLC, who is in essence Mr. Paul Thomas. He's the retired court administrator for the Mesa Municipal Court. He's fully on board. And with our Administrative Order 2020-03, which became effective the 24th of October of this year, we established our steering committee and we established our court. We've already met two or three times, if I remember correctly. We've had 3 separate behavioral health organizations reach out with letters of interest to fully support and participate in our project, which we're very excited about. And on our current timeline, we anticipate our first docket to be April of 2023. And as of December, this month, this year, Goodyear is actively working with the City of Glendale Municipal Court to collaborate with an intergovernmental agreement so that we may participate in their now created West Valley Veterans Court. And the purpose of that is that through our discussions in our steering committee meetings, we, of course, all learned and discovered that the best forum for veterans is among veterans because of the camaraderie that exists between them. And so hopefully we will be able to collaborate with the City of Glendale going forward. We have also expanded our court-appointed counsel services. Expansion has now included advisory counsel services for all of our in-custody defendants, which are every Wednesday, are transported to our court. And we are planning to request increased funding for these services for fiscal year 24 because the demand is definitely there. We are continuing to participate in our remote and virtual court appearances through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, FaceTime, and telephone in accordance with our Administrative Order 2022-02, which is now our presumptive remote and in-person hearings, which we were directed to have implemented by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So that's fully operational as well. I'd also like to call your attention to our compliance. Our state court, our limited jurisdiction court has complied with, both our financial and operational reviews. We specifically completed and underwent the operational review, and it was just completed December of 2021. Courts regularly undergo these audits. Every 7 years, I think it had been, if I'm not mistaken, 10 to 12 years since our last one. When I first was appointed, I requested it as soon as I got here, but we weren't accommodated until later in time due to the amount of work that the AOC has. We did receive our final report and recommendations in the first half of 2020. We have since developed and begun implementing an action plan to address any and all of those recommendations to our court operations, and most of those areas do focus on our case processing, and we are almost halfway done with those modifications. We also underwent and completed our minimum accounting standards, which is our financial external triennial audit. And the triennial audit, the few findings that were held were exactly the same that mimicked our operational review, and those have already been reconciled and resolved. We also completed a very lengthy data gap analysis. This is new. We completed this at the instruction of the Arizona Supreme Court through the Administrative Office of the Courts for IT standards within our court system. And this document was completed by my very competent court administrator, Ms. Whalen, along and partnering with our IT director here for the City of Goodyear. And it's specifically a project to identify any areas of data and technology, the standards between the technology provided by the City of Goodyear and that technology provided by the courts to determine if it meets the same standard. For example, if there were to be a statewide outage, or how would that impact our court operations? And so this kind of gap analysis, we are anticipating we'll be receiving statewide standards that would be forthcoming from the Arizona Supreme Court as a follow-up to this gap analysis that we participated in this year. we are definitely growing. As we can see with this beautiful building, which I congratulate you all for being able to enjoy every single day, we see the growth in court as well. And we have experienced noteworthy increases in our case filings. We have seen our foot traffic increase. And due to the resumption now of kind of going back into our routines and of normalcy, we are experiencing this growth. If we take a look and remember back at our bar graph, in fiscal year 2022, the total charge filings were 12,624 cases. We had non-traffic misdemeanors that increased, 1,328 of those. Our DUIs increased to 1,429. Our protective orders, we had a noteworthy increase in protective orders as well. The only one where we kind of tapered off a bit was our civil traffics, but still, we had a very good amount of those filed this year. We, as I explained before, we were very enthusiastic about online dispute resolution, and technology is very convenient until it brings things to a crawl and sometimes a screeching halt, which is what we experience with online dispute resolution. We are always open to that possibility. In an ideal world with limitless budgets and space, we would man this platform and fund it. But the reality is that the Supreme Court has pulled that funding, and we are, of course, we are responsible for public funds, and so doing our research, we thought it best to discontinue the practice. Of course, always leaving the option open for future possibility of growth in that area. Our caseloads in 2022 have definitely exceeded our expectations, and the demand for attorney services for our indigent defendants has grown correspondingly as well. It does exceed the scope of the contract that we currently have. We've experienced issues with retaining attorneys that want to come and provide these services at a discounted rate because of the sheer amount that we're experiencing. So we're trying to revamp our contracts in an attempt to secure that legal defense, which is our constitutional mandate for those indigent defendants. We also collaborated this year at length with Human Resources to evaluate all court positions, because we did receive feedback from our team in reference to cost of living outpacing our compensation. I think we're all experiencing that in this room and everywhere in our communities. And so our team also experiences that. So we participated in a compensation and class study with an independent consultant. We actually revised all of our court positions. We redid our descriptions, renamed and reclassed our specialist and supervisor positions while absorbing it within our budget. We expanded our organizational structure to include opportunities of growth from a 3-tier system all the way to a 7-tier system. In essence, we've developed a pathway for a career within the court system. We, of course, continue to experience some limitations in our courthouse because of our facility capacity. We're limited in our lobby, we're limited in our resources for staff, general work area, the courtrooms themselves. You all well know the dynamic of the partition in the room and how we have to kind of mix it up a little to accommodate our calendars. And so we are having earnest discussions with city management regarding the need to accommodate this growth in our current location through much needed tenant improvements. We have, in all honesty, begun robustly exploring and researching our vision for the court's growth, which is a forever court facility. We are seeing it on the horizon. We are very encouraged by what we are researching and discussing with state court leadership, and we are very encouraged by what we have unearthed, which we will hopefully in the near future be presenting as an option for this city's continued growth. I'd like to briefly discuss with you our future goals in the short term as we become a high-performing court. We have delineated some objectives for 2023 to 2025. And the very most important one for me is to have a competent and well-trained staff. And in order to do so, we must correct all recommendations that were set forth by our operational review. and that has, of course, been redacted and provided to us in the report from the Arizona Administrative Office of the Courts. Upon receipt of that court, we immediately began working on that. We have begun performing targeted training of individual team members to address specific deficiencies through detailed auditing of work product. We have implemented continuous quality control to ensure that work product actually adheres to court policy and procedure as mandated by the Supreme Court. And our work will continue throughout 2023 until every single finding is corrected and addressed. We are well on our way to accomplishing this goal. Our second goal is, of course, the launch of our problem-solving community court. That is near and dear to our hearts. We are very excited about it forthcoming. And we hope, of course, the objective, as you all know, of the specialty court is to reduce recidivism, is to get to the root problem of why we are seeing so many people come back with similar crimes, to attack homelessness, joblessness, so that defendants can re-engage in our society in a positive manner. And we're exploring opportunities and how to collaborate with the City of Glendale, as I mentioned before, to specifically provide that forum just for our veterans. So we are very excited. We just had a meeting with Judge DiPiazza over at Glendale, and we're very encouraged by the participation in that specialty docket very soon. Those dockets are held twice a month, and we are encouraged with possibly beginning to send our Goodyear veterans to their dockets as soon as February, and our specialty court launching in April of 2023. And our final goal that we've delineated was to expand our court-appointed attorney services to our indigent defendants. Our caseloads, again, have definitely grown, exceeding our expectations. The demand is there for attorney services, and we need to make absolutely sure that we provide for that demand. We need to address those concerns. We need to provide that representation. And that is why we will be seeking additional funding in fiscal year 24. We always will continue evaluating the need for attorney services for all of our indigent defendants to make sure that they are provided with this constitutional right. I'm also would like at the very end, of course, I'd like to share some images of you because it's not in the bulk of my presentation, but along with everything that I've covered, everything that is in the executive summary, court leadership has worked tirelessly to explore and emphasize employee satisfaction and engagement. And we have worked hand in hand with human resources and done extensive work. And these are but a few images, along with the survey results, which we are very proud of, that reflect that our efforts have given back to us. And once we've seen these images, I'll turn over to my court administrator to see if she'd like to expand on anything that I have presented today or to touch upon anything I might have missed. And then afterwards, we are open to answering any questions. I'd like to, before I turn it over, to thank some members of the Judicial Advisory Committee who are here today. Our chairperson is here, as well as two other members. They wanted to make sure that they were here to the completion of the process. I want to thank them for the time, their commitment. They have truly been a pleasure to work with since June up to this day. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Whalen.
Oh, I have to.
No, you're good.
Press,
Hit
and then
it
it's
one more
to-
time.
Did I?
You're good, you're good.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. I mean, I could obviously talk all evening and talk your ears off about the court because I love the court. And so I really am just here to answer any questions. If there's anything that council or mayor would like me to expand upon, I'm happy to do that. I think that's probably better than speaking all evening, which I could do.
All right, let's go ahead and start it off. Who would like to speak first? Somebody? Councilmember Kano?
All right, same thing, checking to see if it's on. So I understand that you're doing court still online through Zoom and Teams and telephone, is that correct? But ODR, I'm not clear on what ODR is then, that you're no longer that's no longer being supported, you're no longer doing. That seemed to be very labor intensive, but it's an online platform.
Yes, excuse me. So it was a pilot program. When courts have plea-by-mail processes for those that that live more than 100 miles away, or especially during the pandemic, we were really exploring remote options. And Goodyear signed ourselves up to be a pilot court to test out Matterhorn as an online dispute resolution specifically for criminal speed violations. And we agreed upon jumping into this project with our prosecutor, and it is extremely labor intensive. If you imagine the ease of being able to text someone back and forth, that is the type of level of communication the court could then, and the prosecutors could receive from a defendant. So the court might have to draft, and the prosecutor might have to draft a professional response, and then the defendant has the ability to text back, LOL, I didn't mean that. Like, they just can engage you so much, and it's very cumbersome. And originally when we were trying to assign resources to the project, we thought, oh, we can check it once a week. That's manageable with what we have going on. And the Supreme Court reached out and said, we'd really love to see you engage every day. And so it was so labor intensive for the prosecutors and the courts that we agreed we cannot keep this up. And we weren't providing quick turnaround to the customers. It just was too overwhelming.
Okay. In your regular Zoom teams, you don't have that back and forth exchange. It's just.
Yeah, because it's just video and audio,
It's
so it works much better.
Very good. And then your department conducted your own class and comp study?
I can clarify on that. We worked with the same consultants that Human Resources did. What we did in addition is had continuous follow-up meetings with Jeannie Reddy, who was our comp and class manager. I apologize if I have the title wrong. She recently retired. But we worked with our business partner and Jeannie to further evaluate, because we had specific written requests from employees asking for us to do more that still felt undercompensated. And it was coming, we had done retention interviews with Human Resources, and compensation was a reoccurring topic that employees felt that we needed to bring back that conversation. And so we did a lot of extra evaluation of our positions as compared internally with the city of Goodyear, not just market to other courts.
All right. Was there a change to compensation?
Yes, all of our court specialists and our supervisors, we did, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were looking at something behind me. We were able to create a oh my goodness gracious.
It's a long day.
It is a long day. We reclassed both of our divisions and both supervisors and brought back a senior position. Some feedback that we had received was that when some team members joined the court, there were leadership opportunities. As the court grew, we restructured, we added the case processing supervisor and removed the lead positions we had. Now we've brought those positions back.
Okay. Maybe a question for city manager. Can departments initiate own class and comp studies? I mean, if you're an enterprise department, could you do that?
I wouldn't say they're class and comp studies, but certainly if a department wanted to go through a reorganization, say that they have one level of administrative aid and they wanted to create 3, that's something that they would work with Human Resources to do. So we certainly work with all departments to create the right structure, and in doing so, if we need to go back out and look at any market positions to do so, we could do that. So we do support the function, but through Human Resources.
Good, very good. And then another question for you. Is the court part of the facilities master plan?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. And then last question is about the Glendale Veterans Court. We're doing once a year right now, their stand-down court, is that correct?
We participate in all of the regional courts. This is the brand new one that Glendale has just started. It's about, I think, a year to 18 months, 13 months old. And so I remember when Judge Brewer retired now, and I had discussions about initiating this. When Judge Finn retired, then Judge DiPiazza took over, and he spearheaded the project because he's a veteran. And so this is very, very near and dear to his heart. And so we are going to now, through, of course, the approval of an intergovernmental agreement, begin participating just for West Valley Regional Veterans Court. We have the regional homeless courts, we have the Tempe Court, and so we're trying to make sure that we service the west portion of the community, and through doing so with one anchor court, which would be the city of Glendale.
Okay, so they'll do the court, and are we responsible for transportation to get people there?
No, we
I
wouldn't be.
mean, if you're homeless, you may
No,
not
no,
be able
no.
to get there.
And so what we're doing, and we were just discussing kind of some of the issues that we need to finesse, of course, with Glendale would be the prosecutor that, of course, we would be able to assist. We'd have the ability to appear remotely, and if that would be the case where we would have an indigent veteran who cannot transport him or herself over there, we could provide them with a platform virtually to participate with a judge over there, with a prosecutor here and a defense attorney here, while having the whole matter resolved, and that way we don't have to inconvenience and concern ourselves about transport.
Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
I have a couple questions. So what is the Tempe court that you participate in, and why Tempe?
Tempe has its own specific event. Each court may have or want to develop their own specialty courts. So Tempe has their own, is it stand down for them?
Yeah, but
Stand
so
up as?
we don't participate in it then?
No, we do. If we
Why?
have, because sometimes we have defendants that are living over there that came to Goodyear and got a DUI because they were at a party during Christmas of 2021. And so now they're living over there, and they would be eligible in that specific area because that's where they reside. So they contact me directly, and they contact Ms. Whalen directly, and they say, okay, Judge, we have XYZ defendant. Do you have him? Absolutely. Would you be willing to assist us with the resolution of his or her case through disposition in our specialty court? And then the parameters of what can and cannot be done are decided between that judge and this court. So that way, we don't lose complete control over that case. And that's one of the beauties that we discussed with Judge DiPiazza on Friday regarding we don't release completely that case because we share in the control of that case. It's for convenience for the defendant.
So the convenience, the defendant lives in Goodyear and
No.
gets a DUI in Tempe?
No, for example,
Other way.
reverse.
All right.
They got the DUI here, for example, and they live over there, and now it's a burden
And so
because
they have to be heard in our court?
because the situation happened here, we hold jurisdiction here, and so that's why, yes,
Okay.
correct.
Now tell me about the homeless court.
So that's our specialty court. So our specialty court, we're going to gear, because our tent is very wide, we're going to have homeless, we're going to have mental health, we're gonna have substance abuse. And so we were also including veterans, but we spun off of that because in our discussions, in our steering committee meetings, based on input from all those stakeholders, the best forum for veterans is with veterans, so as to not place them with other people that are non-veterans and don't share the same camaraderie as having served in our armed services, armed forces. And so the best advice that we've received based on other specialty courts that have been launched, like the Mesa Municipal Court, is to not group them along with substance abuse. But if we have the perfect trifecta of homelessness and substance abuse and that person is a veteran, then we go with that specialty court in Glendale. But we're definitely not going to, at this juncture, have just one calendar dedicated to veterans.
Well, I was talking about homeless.
Oh, and so your question was, what are we doing with homeless?
Yes.
Yes, it's our specialty court. We have
I
homeless.
know it's a specialty court,
substance-
but what I'm trying to say is, are you hearing just Goodyear residents who are
Yes.
homeless?
Yes, here.
And
Anything
that's
that
it?
happens in this
And
jurisdiction.
how many do you hear a month that are homeless?
Well, at this rate, honestly, we haven't been able to collect the data, but we see about 5 to 10 a month. But those numbers are growing because of the growth of the city.
Are they the same people?
Some not.
Okay. And what do you do with them?
Well, we have to adjudicate them traditionally. We haven't begun our specialty court yet. That's what we're preparing and establishing our infrastructure for to launch in April. But right now, we adjudicate them just as we would any person coming in that would
Just give
not.
them a fine or put them in jail or what?
No, it depends on, we don't extend those offers, that's the state. So the state would then decide, based on their prosecutorial discretion, this is the offer I'd like to extend to you. And then, of course, the defendant can decide, love the offer, I'll take it, I don't want to take it, let's go to trial, and then the court would adjudicate the case. But the court plays no role in extending offers, that's not our our function in essence. That would be the state.
So this specialty court, you think you're gonna have enough homeless people and mental health people to have a complete court by itself?
I do. I'd wish we'd had one now.
Okay.
Because we do see that, but I have no way to funnel them anywhere but through our traditional system.
Okay.
And in order to attack that, we want to be able to launch this program.
Okay, I'm very familiar with the Glendale Veterans Court, and I am sorry we're not already in it. I'm glad they've extended the offer for us. I know it will not cost us any money.
No.
And I think we need to get in it as quickly as we can. I do know that I do the stand-up with Glendale, and I know that our previous judge has come, or was there at least once that I know of, to hear cases because they had different judges rotate in for their stand-up, which was very good, but they tried to keep the veterans separate so that they could be dealt with separate, because they have separate issues, and it
Yes.
seemed to work very, very well. So I'm encouraged that you're going to pursue the veterans. So how many, I'm going to say defendants, because I don't know what you call them, what is the number for the demand for court-appointed attorney services? How many are you looking at a month?
It ebbs and flows, but Crystal gave you the latest because we've experienced an increase. You can go ahead and share those
So
numbers.
we had, Councilmember Campbell, we had 3 court-appointed attorneys. We now are down to 1. We were trying to split the caseload, but just last month, because I keep track, we assigned her 32 new appointments just
Okay.
for the month of November.
And what happened to our other 2 court-appointed?
So when we first started the contract, to be perfectly honest, we split the caseload between the 3. The first attorney said it was not enough work for him. It wasn't bringing in enough income, and so he withdrew from his contract within the first couple of months.
Okay.
And the second attorney, it became too much for him, and he withdrew because unfortunately, he was missing court appearances. We were receiving feedback from defendants that they weren't hearing from him. So we are extremely fortunate with the attorney that we have in place now. She is able to manage, but she's getting a little overwhelmed herself.
Oh, I can imagine. So
Yeah.
are we only looking at having 1 at a time, or are you looking at expanding that?
So what we are looking to request in a supplemental for fiscal year '24 is we will ask for one-time funding to be increased to double the amount of attorney time. We're trying, it's been a little similar to recruitment challenges where a lot of court-appointed attorneys hold contracts in multiple courts, and therefore they stretch themselves very thin. We're looking to have dedicated appearance days and hours where these attorneys will be dedicated and paid and know you're getting paid to be here, and we're going to pay you your appointment rate.
Okay.
And so that's the approach we're going to now try to see if that works better to secure more consistent attorney appearances, because the model that has been in practice is these attorneys are spread too thin, and then the defendants are ending up at a loss of that service.
Sure, and I can imagine some of the cases more complicated than others, and it takes more time, so.
And you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, because the process to be afforded an attorney is for the more complex cases, domestic violence, DUI. Those require a lot of work. Those aren't simple conversations between the attorney and the defendant.
Okay, and my very last question is, they mentioned that there was a delay in getting body cam from the officers. Now, I know our officers wear the cameras, and we have someone in the police department that I'm gonna say transcribes, I don't know what else to use, looks at it and I guess writes it all out. Or
Redacts
videos
it.
Yeah, and then that is submitted to you?
No, that's provided to the state, because the court doesn't handle any evidence until we go to trial. So
Okay.
then that has to be disclosed pursuant to the rules of criminal procedure to the defendant if pro per or defense attorney. And so there are delays regarding the redaction of those videos to be able to provide that information. So we've received, because pro pers come to me and telling me, well, Judge, I haven't gotten it. They told me it was 5 to 10 weeks, which is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know, because when Ms. Godbehere was here, I know that they had hired two redaction clerks that will be working in the prosecutor's office, but we have learned lately that they're now being cross-trained, but I'm not really sure who's dedicated now to that specific function so as not to cause delays.
Are they coming out of the police department?
No, this is from the state's
From the
office, from the
state itself,
prosecutor's
okay.
office, yes. And so there are two clerks, and I'm sure that if they're being cross-trained, there's a reason for that.
Okay.
Again, we don't really control that office, but we have seen significant delays in reference to that, specifically in the areas of DUIs.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Loretano.
Well, thank you both for the presentation. I really do appreciate it. And I thank our committee for taking the time, the members that are here as well. I have several questions to go through, and those two questions have brought up several more for me, so just be patient with me. If we're looking at a 10-week backlog, how are we, and so people know what I'm talking about, so I'm not doing inside ballpark stuff. Rule 8 time, there are specific times that certain cases, 120, 180 days, that these cases have to make it through the procedure. The state has to get them charged. If we're looking at a 10-week backlog, how are we not getting cases dismissed because of this?
And I think you're referring to time standards, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So the state, Arizona Supreme Court, we have been speaking time standards, specifically DUI challenges, since they came out. And that is, my opinion is why they're still not fully implemented. They're still under works, they're being evaluated. I can tell you, I run our time that we're required to report them annually. I run them quarterly to see how we're doing. DUIs are trending down. We're probably below 24% now meeting the time standard. And they are not, it wasn't anything brought up in our op review saying this is specifically an issue. We move them, Judge, we've taken approaches where we cut our continuances specifically for DUIs from 4 weeks to 2 weeks. You get 4 continuances and then we go to trial type of approach, but it's not within the court's control to try and do anything differently. We can't control the production of the body cam.
Yeah, and I guess then my next question is, then you're setting up a lot of do-overs, Rule 32 do-overs, if we're saying you have to go to trial within a certain day. So it's interesting about the camera. So about the facilities, I think Councilmember Keno touched on that the court is part of the facilities master plan. And the city manager may know, is that something that's going to be looked at as part of the plan? Is that in there? Not maybe a new building, but upgrades, tenant improvements?
Yes, absolutely. As we were doing the remodeling of the GMC building, now that economic development are out to move IT over, the court is actually included in that part of the tenant improvements.
Okay, I think that's very good. Thank you very much. Having practiced the first 5 to 6 years in a converted Phoenix high school with rats and mold, and I don't know what else we had there. Gotcha. Now, with regard to the courts, it got a little convoluted back and forth. The stand downs we participate in. We don't host our own stand down. And that's where they do the full services for the veterans, the jobs, the clothes, the haircuts, everything. I've done those before. Now the court, the specialty court, we are only looking at doing one for homelessness and for mental health.
And substance abuse.
Okay. So are we looking to add because I did a specialty court at one time for domestic violence. Are we looking to add domestic violence in there to keep a track of those individuals as well as a specialty court, or?
We've discussed that during our steering committee, and that's always something we're open with. We were even including veterans until, of course, during our discussions, it wasn't the best and appropriate forum to lump them in with everyone else. That's why we're going to be, hopefully, once you approve it, entering the intergovernmental agreement, but definitely it's something that we can incorporate as well.
Okay. And with the mental health court, I know Judge Finn started basically her own Rule
Her
11
own Rule
procedure, so her people from Glendale didn't have to travel to downtown.
To do the Rule 11.
To Rule 11. Is that something for our mental health that we could also look to partner with Glendale into their Rule 11 court?
No, we'd actually start our own, and actually with something we've been discussing with Mr. Paul Thomas, because he was the catalyst actually that started that with retired Judge Tafoya in Mesa.
Yeah.
And so after that, Judge Finn turned it into her court, and we're going to move to do it as well once we've established our specialty court, because that definitely would cut down on the time if we could do our own Rule 11s in-house.
So we would be doing our own doctors, scheduling our own doctor's appointments, so they wouldn't get lost between here
Yes.
and Maricopa
The only
County.
issue, of course, is our genie bottle won't accommodate that much
Yeah.
growth. So that's where we kind of run into issues where we want, but we need to do with what we have.
Gotcha. And then the question on the court-appointed attorneys. Have we checked to see if we are comparable to our sister cities in the pay? Because I know several other jurisdictions of our sister cities have had trouble hiring people as well. And then are we comparable with our time request? Because these are, that's what I do, small independent businesses that basically, if you say 8 to 12, then it's got to be 8 to 12. It can't be 8 to 12 and 2 to 3 and then 4 to 5, you know. Are we comparable with that, and do we have a structure in place for that so that we know they know what time they're going to be here and what they're signing up for?
Oh, yes, we've had many meetings, and Crystal can
Yes.
call to mind the calendars that we have, the follow-up meetings we had. The scheduling is definitely the number one issue that we have, but I'll allow Ms. Whalen to speak to that
Yes,
a little more.
I did my due diligence. Definitely, administrators were very communicative with one another. We've provided actually our scope to a number of other courts to see what we were paying. We went from a flat rate model, and that was based on an average of what we were compensating before, but with the caseloads changing, we did a full orientation with our attorneys. We gave them their calendars, said this is exactly when you're expected to be. They have a set schedule for their advisory service, 8:30 to 11:30, and then they're paid incrementally after that. The only challenge has been them having multiple appearances when an in custody pops up, or then a trial is set, and then to them, that's their off day if they're used to coming on a Monday, and then we hold a trial on a Thursday. So that's where we've been having challenges, because a number of these attorneys then are holding contracts, well, that's my day in such and such city, and though we have explicitly explained this in orientation, it has become just a continued challenge. So we're looking now to adopt the time block to expand into pretrial service appearances as well.
Gotcha. Okay, I think that's all I have for right now, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Thanks for the presentation. I apologize for being late. And when I walked in, we were on the bar chart that had the, you don't have to go back, but
Okay.
it had the data in it. I'm wondering, do you have the pre-COVID data to give us the 18-19 versus the 21-22 data? You don't have to do it tonight, but is that something that we can get to see?
Absolutely,
some
Councilmember Stipp, and
comparable?
if you weren't provided with the data, it was in the full packet provided to the advisory committee. I actually had sent the past 10 years perhaps, but I can certainly follow up with that.
We'll
That's
we'll
not
do
a
the
problem.
ones you asked specifically and send them to you.
We'll take the whole packet. If
Okay.
that's what you guys sent, that would be great. Because I think that helps provide some context for what we're talking about. When we talk, so moving on, the redaction statistics and data that you guys are providing us is kind of, appears from memory anyway, that's in conflict with the data that we're getting from the city attorney's office and the prosecutor's office on timelines, et cetera. So I'd like to get some, again, not tonight, but I think behind the scenes, we need to figure that out, get the right set of data, because I think had we seen from the attorney's office 10 weeks, I think we would have probably asked a lot more questions sooner. But I'm thinking we're in the 45-day range.
Yeah, but my data is 68% are provided within 45 days. So,
that's what
but
I
that's,
thought.
last year we were at 65%, our target's 75%.
Yeah.
We'll provide you that data.
Okay. So I think that, obviously provides some just challenges to recollection on that. And then the rest of, as I was listening to, the talk about new court, instituting new court, I'm going to call them proceedings, and that's probably not right. when we're going to do something new, let me just say it that way, I apologize. How are we measuring that? We can say, hey, we're going to do a veterans court, or we're going to do a drug abuse court. Are there performance measurements that come with that? I'm going to look down the way at Jenna in the back there and throw the performance measurement piece. Are the courts participating in the performance measurement program that we have in the city?
Councilmember Stipp, we are. We do have measures that we've identified and are providing data on. We are not, the measure is not in relation to specialty court cases. I do track the timeline for those cases for all mental health, homeless, and veteran. I track all of those cases, so I could tell you how long from the case being accepted into a specialty court to resolution. So what our goal is to reduce that timeline, especially right now with Rule 11s, the mental health proceedings. We have 5 cases that have been cycling in that process with the Superior Court because it's just very time intensive and costly because the defendants remain incarcerated most of the time. So we're looking to reduce the costs associated with these individuals, reduce the time they are incarcerated, and reduce those timelines to resolve those specialty cases.
As I was listening, so if you're not speaking, turn your mic off.
Thank you.
Julie's like, oh, okay, I think so as I was listening to that, I'm hearing knew this, knew that, and as I look over your guys' shoulders, I look at all the other directors who have heard me say, measure that before you come to me with a new program. So I'm going to say to the court the exact same thing I would tell anybody else. What's the measurement for this? How are we measuring success? How will we know, as opposed to I want? What does this all mean? And maybe that's the first edition of the 2023 court report that comes out. I don't know, but I don't think we can let the standard be different for the court than it is for, I'm going to say just about everybody else. And it's the same thing with, the law doesn't differentiate between a veteran, a homeless person, or someone who lives in a home. A DUI is a DUI is a DUI, or whatever the case is. So I want to apply that same standard to all the city departments, et cetera. I really didn't have any other questions. I think you guys have some work to do behind the scenes, but I appreciate the information in tonight's presentation.
Thank you.
Being the last one up, we've got a great council here. They've asked some great questions. I'm not doing an ask just for the sake of asking. You guys did a great job of asking questions of the court and of the presentation. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and no further business to discuss. This meeting is adjourned. We're going to go right into the next meeting, which is a special meeting for executive session. Close that one out. I'd like to call the special meeting order for December 12th, 2022. The city clerk, please read a roll call.
All members are present except for Councilmember or Vice Mayor Hampton. We will need a motion to excuse him.
Can I get a motion to excuse Vice Mayor Hampton?
So move.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. A vote may be held to call an executive session for the following. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3-4, discussion and consultation with the city attorney, city manager receive an update to consider its position and to provide instruction and direction to the city attorney and city manager regarding city's position in connection with contractual negotiations relating to intergovernmental agreement for the regional metropolitan Phoenix service automatic aid and for legal options related to the provision of fire services out City of Goodyear limitations. Boy, that was a mouthful, right? I would like to have a motion, a second, go into executive session.
So move.
We have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll leave this room and we're going up to our famous fourth floor.
You're coming back to the